Israel was a refuge, the one and only refuge for thousands of Arab Jews that we pushed out of their own country, of their own homes. So if we are against Israel and the establishment of Israel, where were they supposed to go? These thousands of Jews that were kicked out, where were they supposed to go? The establishment of the state of Israel came to guarantee the survival of the Jews, the ability to give the Jews the ability to defend themselves so that they don't get killed. So why is the world, my question, why is the world have a problem with that? Why is that is such a big problem that the Jews finally can create a home and be able to say, I'm not going to get killed just like that. I am able to defend myself. And then the world goes bananas just for that. It didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't.
My guest today is Mustapha Ezzarghani. Mustapha is a Moroccan writer, peace activist, president of the Moroccan-Israeli Friendship Association, and author of the book Arab Identity Syndrome. Like millions of Arabs and Muslims, Mustapha grew up believing Israel was the enemy. As a teenager watching Al Jazeera during the Second Intifada, he has openly admitted that he admired suicide bombers and saw them as heroes defending their people. But one unexpected encounter in a remote village in Morocco forced him to question everything he thought he knew about Jews, Israel, and the conflict he had spent his life hearing about. Today, Mustapha is one of the most outspoken Arab voices challenging anti-Israel narratives, speaking out against extremism, and urging the Arab world to confront difficult truths about identity, history, and the stories it tells itself. Mustapha, welcome.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Mustapha, you publicly admitted something most people would never admit. You said that as a teenager, you watched Al Jazeera, and you actually wished you could be one of the suicide bombers being celebrated on television. Take us back to that moment. Who was that 14-year-old Mustapha, and what was life like for you then?
Well, I mean, ideas like this doesn't form in a very short amount of time. It doesn't forms in hours or days. It takes years and years of determination. And I have watched Al Jazeera growing up, and I have consumed hundreds of hours of this narrative every day. They were very persistent. They try to put a little bit of the message in you every day until you form this identity that is anti-Israel, anti-Jews, and an identity that celebrates and cherish violence and terror. And to some extent, you were successful when it comes to my experience. Because as you said, during the Second Intifada, I was watching the reports that are coming from the Middle East through Al Jazeera. And of course, we were watching the series of this of suicidal bombing in buses, in cafes and restaurants. And of course, the targets were most of the time civilians, Israeli civilians. We're talking about kids and women and old people. And the message was very well edited. And it has a tone of a celebration of what's going on in Israel, of the lives that are lost in Israel. The suicidal bombers were presented to us as heroes. You don't call them suicidal bombers. You don't use that term. You call them al-muqawama, the resistance. Resistance against who and for what? Resistance against the invaders, the white European newcomers. That's what we were taught, which is the Israelis. No education on the history of the Jews who are living with us within our streets and cities in the Arab world, in Yemen and in Iraq and in Egypt, and why they are not there anymore, why they are in Israel. No education about the historical relationship of the Jews to the Holy Land, that it's thousands of years old, not something that started in 1948. So these people were defending their land, they were defending their identity, they were defending their culture against these invaders coming from Europe. Other message that we were led to believe or I was led to believe, is that the Israeli project is not just to establish a state in Israel. No, they are coming for us as the Arab world. They are going to expand. Once they are done with the Palestinians, we are next. So, in a direct or indirect way, we felt like those people were the wall between us, the wall protecting us from Israelis. And once that wall is fallen, we are next. They are coming for us. So you weren't just defending their identity and their religion and their land. You were also defending us. As a teenager, who wouldn't admire these people? They are fighting and they are getting killed, and they are for the sake of protecting me in Morocco, in Algeria, in Tunisia, in Libya, in Saudi Arabia. Of course, I'm going to look at them as our heroes. Unfortunately, growing up, I didn't have access to any media that speaks my native language, Arabic or Darija, that can educate me on the topic. All I had access to is this narrative. So I believed this was the truth for years. I believed that this was the absolute truth, non negotiable. So, of course, there was a time where I was I was watching Al Jazeera right next to my dad. I still remember that moment where I was looking at the picture of the suicidal bomber. And as the Al Jazeera reporter is talking about him, I felt this deep admiration and I felt this hope that in the future, I may be one of these people who die for the sake of defending their identity and their religion and their land and the Arab world. So you were successful on that point.
Now, was this about land? Was this about a land that was stolen, or was it about religion? Meaning, this was at some point Islamic land, and the Jewish people came and took the land. Was it that as well?
Well, I mean, in the Arab world and the Arab Muslim world, we have different categories of people, and unfortunately, the anti-Israel propaganda was successful in reaching each categories by whatever topics, whatever slogans that appeals to them. If you are a strong believer and a religious individual, they used Islam. They created this. They pictured this conflict as a holy conflict. It's a mission from God. They were successful to picture killing Jews as a holy mission, as a mission that will be rewarded by God. If you are not religious, and we have a lot of people that are not religious, but they are very proud Arabs, anti-Israelism or anti of the Arab identity since day one. So if you are a proud Arab, if you are an Arab nationalist, being an anti-Israel is a pillar of your identity. And we saw that with Jamal Abdel Nasser, the god of Arab nationalism, and with Assad, and with Saddam, and with the Ba'athis, as we call them. And that message was very strong. You have to imagine in the 40s and 50s, and before access to phones and internet and Facebook and Instagram and even TV, people listened to radios. One major radio was Sawt al-Arab, the voice of Arabs. Got people in Marrakesh, in Fez, in Tunisia, in Yemen, were listening to Jamal Abdel Nasser's message like they were listening to a prophet. He was spreading Arab nationalism, and unfortunately, this Arab nationalism wasn't built on a common economical project. It wasn't built on an Arab cultural renaissance. It wasn't built on a strong political Arab project. Unfortunately, it was built on anti-Israel sentiment and only anti-Arab sentiments. People were hearing in the voice or in the radio that the presence of the Jewish presence in the Middle East is dishonoring us as Arabs? Well, is in order to reclaim that honor and reclaim that dignity, we have to push the Jews out. If you are not an Arab nationalist, if you are not a religious Muslim, then it becomes there is a more universal fake message or fake propaganda, which is that humanity, as a human being, you don't want a very powerful people who are controlling everything around the world coming to the Middle East and creating a new state and pushing the poor Palestinians away from their lands and killing their kids and killing their ladies. And so that's the more universal message. So they're playing on all level. The propaganda is spread on all level. They have different messages. It doesn't have one base. It doesn't have one ground. It plays you based on who you are. And that's why it went beyond the Arab and the Muslim world. And we are watching protests on American kids on campuses. Those American kids are not Muslims most of the time. They are not Arabs, but they were able to reach them because he created that more inclusive, more universal message that Israel is the evil party and Palestinians are victims, unfortunately. So yeah, so there isn't one only ground that the message is based on.
Now, you mentioned that Al Jazeera was a very big influence on your generation. Nowadays, we have social media, we have the internet. There's many ways for young Muslims to access information. But do you think that the brainwashing or whatever, the propaganda against Israel has gotten worse? Is it harder for a young Muslim to see the truth nowadays, or is it easier?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have social media right now and we have access to the internet, but so is Al Jazeera, and they are putting millions of dollars into sponsoring their message through this platform as well. Keep in mind that the majority of the Arab world don't speak a second language. You have to be like educated and very educated in visual in order to have access first to a second language so that you can have a different opinion, different reporting. Second, you have to be very educated to have a critical thinking. And that's not very common in a lot of Arab Muslim world. So still, Al Jazeera, the Arabic Al Jazeera message is the dominant message on social media and on our media in general. Keep in mind also that they made this message very strong, very powerful, but they had to protect it from criticism, protect it from doubts. So anyone who raised in the Arab world with questions, not values, not convictions, just questioning this message is pictured as a traitor, not a real Muslim, not a real Arab, an ally of the Zionist entity, as they like to call it. And it's pictured in a way that make him or her the enemy of the society. And who wants to live in a society that consider them an enemy? Who wants to be disowned by his own parents and brothers and sisters? So questioning the message is not that easy in the Arab world. And doing it in Arabic is even worse. And I'm not talking about people who want to go there and defend Israel publicly. No, I'm just talking about people who question. It's like, are we, have we been right about Israel this whole time? Maybe there is a missing piece. Are we sure we really understand Israelis and we understand the modern Israeli society? Just putting this question there, you were touched by Satan and need to be purified. Your soul need to be purified. So it's not very easy to start these conversations in the Arab world right now. Maybe in some countries is worse than others, but this is a general sentiment. So educating people is really hard. What really scares me is I see the same thing starting to happen here in the United States. I'm not talking about dictatorships in the Middle East. I'm not talking about Iraq and Syria and Yemen. I'm talking about a democratic country, a country that considers itself one of the most advanced democracies on earth. And it's really hard to have a conversation with an American right now, or with a lot of Americans. I'm not going to generalize, but with a lot of Americans, where you try to get them to look at the other side or try to be critical of the anti-Israel propaganda. The moment you start doing that, there are labels ready for you. You start questioning the anti-Israel propaganda, and then instead of bringing up arguments to discuss your points, what do you do? They ask you, are you a pro-Israel? And the moment you say yes, there are labels ready for you. Like you are Ba'ath, you are getting paid, you are a Mossad agent, you are a Zionist, which is an insult. This is very scary. This is creating an unhealthy environment for conversations between Americans. Like right now, I know personally a lot of Jewish organizations, very strong Jewish organizations, who have been very afraid to publicly and strongly and unapologetically support the state of Israel. Whenever you suggest an event or an initiative, they are afraid. They're like, no, they're like, we're afraid there's security issues and it's not the time. And now the sentiment is not. You live in the United States. You can say whatever you want. You should be able to defend your identity, your Jewish identity. And Israel should be the center of your Jewish identity. You shouldn't be scared of anyone. You shouldn't be scared to say anything. You shouldn't be apologetic in your support for the Jewish state, the one and only Jewish state. And if you don't believe in your own state, who's going to? If you don't believe in the right of your existence, who is going to believe in that? If you are feeling, if they pushed you to feel ashamed to call yourself a Jew, a proud Jew and proud pro-Israeli, then we're not living in the United States anymore. You are not only hurting Israel, you are hurting the values on which this country was built on. The values of free speech, the values of being who you are without fearing anyone. Unfortunately, this is not something that only exists in the Arab Muslim world. This is something that we have been seeing in the United States. And unfortunately, it's even worse in other places in Europe, in England, in Canada, and still need a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Now, at what point did your views and opinions about Jews in Israel change? Maybe you could tell us the story about the girl in the mountains.
Yeah, so as I told you, my views about Israel weren't built in a short amount of time, but changing my mind about Israel also wasn't built all of a sudden, or it took time. It's been like, I took my time. It's been years of internal debate. The debate was between two things. The debate was between the Al Jazeera narrative and the beautiful stories that we hear as Moroccans from our grandparents who get to live with the Moroccan Jews and experience that relationship. For the new generation, Jews are a distant enemy that they have never met, they have never dealt with. For the old generation in Morocco, Jews were never enemies in this generation's mind. They were friends, they were neighbors, they were business partners, they were successful musicians and politicians and lawyers. Morocco was a country where a Muslim will go and hire a Jewish lawyer to defend them in court. So I've been hearing these beautiful stories, and then Al Jazeera message comes, and I'm confused. I'm struggling. Who is right about the Jews? Al Jazeera or my grandparents? I struggled with that for a little bit. Unfortunately, Al Jazeera won because that message was stronger, more consistent, daily, and usually accompanied by very well edited videos of people being killed Palestinians screaming in the street. So Al Jazeera message one. My awakening moment was when a friend of mine invited me to come visit him in the mountains of a village near a place called Amzmiz. I think it's like an hour away from Marrakesh. Very small Amazigh village in the tip of the mountain. And while I was there, we were invited to lunch by this Amazigh family, a very modest family, very, I would say, from the look at their house, they were very poor. So we accepted the invitation and we went to visit them and have lunch with them. And I was having a conversation with the lady over there, with the wife, and we were talking. And she can barely, well, she can, like, she speaks Arabic with a very thick Amazigh accent. So I was playing with her daughter, who was, I think, 6 years old or 7 years old at the time, and asking her about school and all of that. And then the lady told me that her daughter had an open heart surgery. So, of course, I had questions. So, my first remark was, well, how can this family afford an open heart surgery? It's very expensive. Second, it's very expensive because it's not offered in Morocco for kids like that. Usually people go to Spain or to France to do it. So how this lady was able to go to Spain? So I asked her, like, how were you able to afford an open heart surgery? Did you do it in Morocco? Or did you do it in France? And then she surprised me. The answer was shocking. She told me, no, we had the open heart surgery in Israel. Maybe for a Western, I don't know, like maybe for somebody else, this is a normal or an answer, or it's okay. Yeah, you had your surgery in Israel. But if for a Moroccan teenager who believed that Israel is the pure evil and nothing good comes from the Israelis, this was a shock. So, of course, I had more questions. I was like, well, how did this happen? So she said that a doctor, like an Israeli doctor from a Moroccan origin, comes to the village once a year because his grandparents comes from that village. So he built a vacation house in that village and comes to reconnect to people over there and to the land where his grandparents came from or immigrated from. So he comes and he was playing with the daughter, just like I was doing, and he noticed that there is something wrong with her. He didn't know exactly what, but I think the color of her lips, of her face wasn't right for him. So he told the mom, and he offered to help them go to Marrakesh to do more lab work and to see a doctor, to go to the doctor office. So she accepted. So he brought them to Marrakesh, and he did that. And he discovered that she needs an open heart surgery. So the doctor contacted an organization in Israel and arranged everything for them. So she told me that she was there for 6 months. I asked her, were they nice to you because you're a Muslim? She said, yes, they were very nice to me. And they told her, did you have trouble wearing your scarf or wearing your burqa while you were in Israel? This Berber lady was laughing at me. She was way more educated on Israel than me because she got to visit, of course. She said most of the nurses who were helping me in the hospital were wearing scarves. So I asked her why, because in my mind, there are no Muslims in Israel. She's like, why were they wearing scarves? She was like, because they were Muslims. I said, there are no Muslims in Israel. She's like, yes, there are Muslims in Israel. Well, everything that they believed in Israel started to collapse. Everything that Al Jazeera has educated us on started just crumbling. And it was like, well, I don't think that I'm well educated on who Israel is. So starting that moment, I first start educating myself about the Moroccan Jews. Why are there still this sentiment of love and respect in Morocco for the Moroccan Jews? And they found out that they were real contributors to the Moroccan society on all levels, on the economical level, on the cultural level. Everything beautiful about the Moroccan civilization has a Jewish fingerprint. And they just felt in love with the Moroccan Jewish culture and history and contributions to the society. And then I started educating myself about other Jewish communities around the world, in Algeria, in Tunisia, in Libya, in Iraq. There's a beautiful Jewish history in Iraq and Yemen. And then there comes a question, why these Jews left? They were, for them, for their families, they were home. The Jewish in Iraq has been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, it can't be just Zionism. So I discovered that they were pushed out. They were basically hundreds of thousands of Jewish refugees. And then the next question is, why are we not hearing about this refugee story? Why is the only refugee story the Palestinian refugee that happens after the Nakba? How about the Jewish Nakba? How about the hundreds of thousands of Jews that were kicked out of their homes with sometimes a 24 hours notice? They left everything behind, their businesses, their houses, their land, their properties. They left with a suitcase, if even. How are we not discussing this? Why didn't I learn about this in school? Why is no one of my teachers talk to me about this? Why is this not something that is discussed in our media? This is a moral collapse of the Muslim Arab world. This is a crime against this community, and we need to discuss it. And we need to apologize to these families. So if we created hundreds of thousands of Arab Jewish refugees, the question that's come next is, where were they supposed to go? Europe and America at that time weren't a happy place for the Jews either. America wasn't accepting new immigrants. Europe wasn't a happy place. So Israel actually solved a major human catastrophe that we create in the Arab world. Israel was a refuge, the one and only refuge for thousands of Arab Jews that we pushed out of their own country, of their own homes. So if we are against Israel and the establishment of Israel, where were they supposed to go? These thousands of Jews, these thousands of families that were kicked out, where were they supposed to go? So Israel is not a colonial project. Israel was a necessity a necessity at the time for the survival of hundreds of thousands of Jews. So the Zionist project wasn't a project that comes to make the Jews more powerful or more comfortable. The Zionist project came, and Israel came, the establishment of the state of Israel came to guarantee the survival of the Jews, the ability to give the Jews the ability to defend themselves so that they don't get killed. So why is the world, my question, why is the world have a problem with that? Why is that is such a big problem that the Jews finally can create a home and be able to say, I'm not going to get killed just like that. I am able to defend myself. And then the world goes bananas just for that. It didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't. Why is the world in love with the weak Jew, with the Jew who has no power, with the Jew? Why were we okay with the Jew who plays oud and sing for us, but we're not okay with the Jew who invents and creates and fly jets and able to defend themselves and defend their nation and say and make the world respect them the way they should? I personally don't have a problem with that. I've watched Israel since I've read about Israel and the history of the conflict in the Middle East since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. I have never seen Israel attacking another country, another organization, another army if it didn't feel like if it was threatened. Its existence is threatened. All their military actions were a defensive military actions, pure defensive military actions. It's time about the world to think about this. It's time about the world to accept the strong Jew who can defend himself.
Now, you wrote an entire book called Arab Identity Syndrome. Can you explain what Arab Identity Syndrome is?
Well, Arab identity syndrome is a situation that we create and we have been living in for the last 8-9 decades, which is putting Israel in the center of our identity. As an Arab, as Muslim, I identify as an Arab Muslim Moroccan individual. Reading about my history and reading about my culture and reading about the civilizations that my ancestor built, a civilization rich with philosophy and mathematics and poetry, music, and beautiful architecture. I refuse to summarize me and summarize my history and summarize or reduce my identity to someone who walks on earth with one single obsession and project, hating a Jew or hating Israel. It's an insult to me to, instead of teaching me, educating me when I was growing up about my own history, my own philosophers, my own Sufi masters, you are teaching me about terrorists. You are teaching me about terrorists killing people in Israel. You are teaching me poems that invite Arabs to kill the Jews. You are teaching me about the names of Hezbollah's leaders. You don't represent me. You don't represent my history. You don't represent my culture. My culture is a culture of Al-Ghazali, is a culture of Ibn Arabi, it's a culture of Rumi. It's a culture of great philosophers and poets and Sufi masters and musicians and mathematicians. It was, and it is still, the greatest crime that happened against Arabs in the last 100 years is taking their entire civilizations and entire history and reducing it to an anti-Israel, to an identity with anti-Israel sentiments as the center of it, in the middle of it. We're bigger than that as Arabs. If we are going to unite, we should unite about around something else, around a strong political project, around asking for democracy for our countries, for dignity, for strong economies, for opportunities for young individuals, job opportunities, for less corruption in our institutions. That's what should unite us, not erasing this very small entity in the Middle East, the size of New Jersey, called Israel. And all what they brought to the world is innovation, is the revival of an ancient language called Hebrew. It's helping countries like India, for example, right now, revolutionize their agriculture. We see what they're doing in a lot of African countries. Why are we resisting this? Why are we resisting a neighbor that is willing to help us advance our technology, advance our agriculture, advance our military capabilities? And they are doing that. Morocco is an example. Moroccan agriculture is flourishing. And the only reason is because we said yes to the Israeli technology. Israelis are coming and selling their technology in Morocco, and we're benefiting for that. Military collaboration. We are right now in a better situation to defend ourselves against all threats because of Israeli military capabilities and Israeli drones. We know that. They're helping us. So what have we been resisting all this time? We have been resisting something that it's essential to us in the region. Who needs to take advantage of water management technology right now more than Arab countries, who their land is 99% desert? And we have a huge problem, and we're going to have even a bigger problem in the future managing our water. And what's the answer to that right now? It's Israeli technology. So why are we not collaborating with them? Why are we not funding more joint project with Israeli scientists? This is what the future that we want. This is the Middle East that we need to dream of. Is a Middle East where Arab countries are putting hands in hand with their Israeli brothers and sisters, with a tribe that 100% belongs to the Middle East. And you have always been there, and you will always be there. Their return wasn't a colonial movement. Their return was coming back to the origins. Their return was coming back to their ancestors' homes. Their return was it was them trying to say enough to killing the Jew without consequences, enough to the persecution of the Jews around the world. We should not have a problem with this message. We should not have a problem with millions of refugees who came back to their ancestral land to create a nation to help their neighbors and to protect themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. And we should be in support. And if we had accepted Israelis in the Middle East long time ago and worked with them and just treat them as human beings, I think we will have a different Middle East right now. I think we will have a different economies. I think we will have a different or stronger democratic institutions in our countries. We will be in different situation if we haven't made the mistake of creating an enemy of the Israelis since day one.
Now, as you mentioned, you argued that Israel became the excuse for almost everything, all the problems in the Arab world: corruption, dictatorship, educational failure, economic failure. How is it that people bought this? Meaning, if Israel would cease to exist, would all their problems go away? It obviously wouldn't, right? But are you saying that the brainwashing was so strong that they believed that Israel was the problem behind everything? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course, the message was strong and it's still strong because it's a daily message. It's a message that you hear on the radio and then on TV and then at school and then at the Friday sermons at the mosque. It's a message that we spend millions of dollars to spread and strengthen every day in the Arab world. Of course, it's strong. I believe that if Israel didn't exist, a lot of Arab leaders would have invented another Israel to use as an excuse to not advance their country's democracy, to stay in power. Israel came very handy for Arab dictators, Saddam, for Assad, for Nasser, and then Hosni Mubarak after. And they used it as an excuse to shut down every internal discussion about democracy, about advancing our economy, about opportunities for young individual. If you are critical of your regime, they already have labels for you. One of the strongest one is you are trying to destabilize the society and destabilize the country, and you know that we have an enemy just like few miles from us called Israel. So maybe you are helping the Israeli agenda. Maybe you are part of the Zionist plan in the region. These accusations were enough to shut down any criticism, any movement to ask for liberty and democracy and freedom of speech and more economic opportunities. So it was very useful for a lot of dictators, and he needed it. And he made sure that it's always there. It's always there. So we used Israel to solve our internal crisis, our internal, and to shut down our internal debate and to strengthen our dictatorships in the Arab Muslim world.
Now, what effect did October 7th have on your advocacy and your willingness to speak publicly about Israel?
Well, as someone who understands the region and grew up in the region and understand the mentality, I believe that I deeply understand the mentality of people like Hamas, mentality of the Muslim Brotherhood. I know their goals. I know what they aim at. I know these strategies. And a lot of time, they're not very secret about their strategies. They communicate it to us just in a language that the average American or Americans don't understand in Arabic. So the reason why October 7th happened from the perspective of Hamas is that the Abraham Accord was going in a very fast way, and it was very successful, and it involved very key countries in the region that signed peace deal with Israel. And it wasn't just cold peace like what happened in Egypt and on Jordan. It was real peace where visits between the two countries start happening, collaborations on all level with the UAE, with Morocco. We had in less than few months, we had hundreds of Israeli business people who start visiting Morocco and looking for opportunities. This was scary for Hamas. This was the first step towards a very stable Middle East. These people don't benefit from stability. It doesn't benefit them to build friendship with Israelis. They have been getting millions of dollars and empathy from the international public opinion through destabilizing any initiative that aim to build peace with the Israelis. These people knew that one of the best ways to get aids, to get millions of dollars from Europe and the United States, all what you need to do is just send 10 to 20 rockets aiming to hit Tel Aviv. You understand that the Israelis have to respond to that, as should any country do. They're going to hit Hamas back. Civilians are going to die. They're going to show us the pictures, and then they get their prize, millions of dollars. Sadly enough, their plan has always worked, including October 7th. They attacked Israel. They killed hundreds of innocent people in the most barbaric way. They understand the Israeli mentality, the mentality that believes that the core reason of the establishment of Israel is to protect the Jews. And after all this, Jews are watching their own people being slaughtered on live streaming. Of course, what are you thinking? The response is going to be hard. And it should be. So when Ismail Hania was asked in Arabic, and it's on YouTube, he was asked, why did you do October 7th? He said the number one reason is to reverse the Abraham Accord. So in this terrorist mind, sacrificing few thousands of his own people and using them as a human shield is worth it to happen as a strategic plan to reverse the Abraham Accord. For him, it's a win. Israel comes trying to find Hamas fighters. On the way, hundreds of or thousands of people, innocent people are going to die. They're happy with it. It's okay. For them, death for their own people is not an issue. It's not a problem. And this is what the West can't wrap their minds around. These people worship deaths. While Israelis protect their kids and their women and their elderly and protect their civilians, these people are happy to put their people in front of them to get killed. The thing is reversed in Gaza. Second of all, second reason is that they want the support, the international support. Because who wouldn't support a group that claim that their own civilians are dying every day by the Israeli bombs? And the pictures that comes from there are horrific, and the videos are just terrible, because they understand that the average person in America or in Europe doesn't have the time nor the energy, and sometimes even the intellectual capability, and sometimes not even the appropriate background to understand exactly what's happening on the ground. So the easy conclusion is that Israelis are killing kids. That's easy, because that's what you saw. You don't have the time. You don't take the time. And many of them, even they decide to take the time, they're not qualified as someone like me who understand these people, understand what they are doing on the ground to their own people. They're not qualified to understand exactly why kids are getting killed. Kids are getting killed because they don't have access to the tunnels. And who have the access to tunnels? Hamas fighters. Kids are getting killed because the building where the kid lives is used as a launch stage for rockets to hit and kill Jews on the other side. That's why. It's because hospitals are being used as military stations and schools and churches and mosques. The way Hamas has designed Gaza, and they did, oh God, they did a great job. They did a fantastic job. They made it impossible for an Israeli soldier to get to a Hamas fighter without going through a civilian. It, it's almost impossible. And if you talk to any military expert on earth, he would say Gaza is one of the most complicated population to navigate as a soldier, as an army. It's one of the most populated places on earth. And further, it was designed to put civilians first, to put women first. It was designed to be a trap for Israeli soldiers. This is what people need to understand. These are not fighters who put women and kids behind them and fight Israeli soldiers. These are people who push their women and their kids to die so that they can get money and support. And he did. They did. They get a lot of support. France recognized them as a state. Spain has got relationship with Israel and recognized them as well. So the reward was given. You were rewarded for October 7th. So and protests around the United States, protests around Europe, putting Jewish life in danger everywhere around the globe. October 7th was rewarded. Hamas was rewarded. The international reaction to the war in Gaza is encouraging Hamas to rebuild itself and plan for the next October 7th, unfortunately.
Mustapha, I want to thank you for your time, for your insights.
Thank you. Then.
How can people find you, purchase your book, or any place that you want them to go visit? Let us know. And if you want to end off with this final message, you're more than welcome to.
Well, I invite your viewers to follow me on Instagram, Ezzarghani, my last name. Facebook is Mustapha Ezzarghani. Basically, by just using my name, you can access my content. You can access my advocacy work. I am always, always happy to receive their messages, their remarks, their criticism. If I'm always happy to be challenged. I think one of my strengths is that I wake up every morning ready to change my mind. So what I've been defending, what I've been standing for when it comes to Jewish communities here in the United States and around the world, and defending Israel and Israel right to defend itself, I am willing to change my mind if anyone can convince me otherwise. But until then, I stand with Israel and they stand with the Jewish communities around the world because that's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Mustapha. God bless you, and hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.